With the release of the 1.7 update and the additional countries being added, I thought it would be a good idea to put out a short video underlining some nations and focus trees that should absolutely be played in Millennium Dawn. Some have been around for a while and some are new. Hopefully they will inspire you to have a fun playthrough or two, as Millennium Dawn is full of absolutely fantastic content and some of the best focus trees in all of HOI4. If you don't know how to play MD or it looks too intimidating, I have plenty of MD tutorials on my channel to learn. I'm Hammurabae, let's get going. One of the best countries to play in Millennium Dawn is Brazil, which will be number 1 on our list. Brazil is an incredibly interesting country both in reality and in Millennium Dawn. They are a BRICS nation and have always been unable to reach their true potential due to the leftovers from the old governments and the corruption that oil and natural resources have brought. In Millennium Dawn, you're able to choose from numerous political options, with a truly impressive amount of focuses, which go fairly in-depth, unlike many, which are the same old you see in any other mod. This tree involves Lula, Bolsonaro, Operation Car Wash politically, so there's a lot of interesting stuff. This tree also includes a lot of economic and diplomatic focuses to build up your economy in an engaging manner and involve yourself heavily in developing South American diplomatic systems. Playing Brazil in MD have been some of my absolutely favorite playthroughs in HOI4 period. China was one of the world's many sleeping giants until very recently. They have proven themselves to be a force to be respected in the last decade, but at the start date in 2000 their future is still more uncertain. Reforms have been made, and somewhat more involved in global economic systems, but this is not set in stone. With China and Millennium Dawn, you have the option to play out a historical China, which involves itself in the WTO and becomes the world's foremost exporter. There are plenty of alternative options politically to play through as well, with your options varying in level of commitment to Maoist principles. Yet again, we find an absolutely massive focus tree that gives you so many options. China is easily able to become a superpower if you guide it well, and this is being in the focus tree makes things very engaging. You are given a ridiculous amount of diplomatic focuses as well as some incredibly interesting economic options. Religion, freedom of speech, the nation's Taiwan policy are all open to choice and interpretation as you play through China and MD. This is another fantastic playthrough that if you understand MD mechanics somewhat, you'll have a great time playing. The 1.7 update will add several new focus trees, the biggest and most fun of which is Iran. This country is of course an incredibly complex one that is now fully underneath religious fundamentalism and extremism. The history of the region goes back to the earliest days of human civilization, so there's a lot of history to build off of. The focus tree is very long and detailed, with lots of political paths to choose from. You'll be able to steer things towards a religious haven and help to take on the West through proxy wars or completely rebuild the country ground up. It is a very engaging tree that gives you the ability to go very far and still have lots to do. Unlike many trees you see in HOI4, it's also much more smaller in scale at times, in the sense that not every focus is some huge abstract sweeping reform you can do in 70 days. It's nice to have a tree that covers so much, but in a relatively measured and enjoyable manner. Recent events have put Ukraine into the forefront of global politics, and if you're like me, you may want to be able to have a playthrough where you beat the crap out of the Russians. The Ukrainian focus tree gives you several political paths to follow, which of course revolve around their relationship with the EU and Russia. You are able to move towards either one, as well as NATO, making your path forward being of your own making. The tree is not as massive as some others in MD, but it is engaging in detail. If you choose to join the EU, you will have access to the whole EU focus tree mechanics, which are a lot of fun, though a little confusing. Keep in mind AI Russia can and will take your territory and start wars, so be prepared to fight back and destroy the bear, securing a future for your people. Another country getting a well-deserved tree is Spain. What makes this tree a nation so interesting and worth playing to me is the interesting cultural dynamics that have been added. Spain has a lot of unique cultures, many of which don't necessarily see themselves as Spanish, and this dynamic is explicitly added in the game. You'll be able to decide the political and cultural future of the country through the focus tree and decisions. There's also a massive amount of economic choices and political options to choose from, which are a lot of fun to read and play through. Botswana shockingly has a tree in MD. It's not as massive, but is well worth a playthrough. Botswana is of course one of the few nations in Africa that is fairly stable and democratic in modern times. This was only possible due to very effective leadership and managing to not let the historical regimes that surrounded them destroy the country. Playing through Botswana, you have to juggle the HIV crisis, the slowly advancing deserts, environmental issues, as well as internal political problems. Again, this will not be an incredibly long playthrough, but is engaging and a lot of fun. I know it's cheating to put two countries into one, but the Koreas are of course very intertwined in history and their focus trees. Whether you choose North or South Korea, you will have a fun focus tree to play with and lots of interesting mechanics to test your skills and path forward. You are able to solve the split diplomatically, or start the Second Korean War if you want a more tough playthrough. Keep in mind that both the US, China, and other powers have vested interest in the conflict, so things will get very messy. It is definitely worth a playthrough or two to enjoy the history and detail added to them in Millennium Dawn. Saudi Arabia is famous for oil, deserts, and probably helping to fund 9/11. When the royals of the country aren't busy bribing the Trump family for nuclear secrets, they are ruling their very unequitable country. The focus tree for Saudi Arabia is pretty detailed, with plenty of paths to follow that help utilize the oil wealth that makes them relevant. You also have a lot of social choice issues, and can decide the manner in which oil wealth is dealt with moving into the modern age. Well worth playing through at least once. Another tree added in 1.7 is for Azerbaijan. The Caucasus are in and out of the headlines of the news over the last few decades due to their political issues and the conflicts which have existed there for quite a long time. It doesn't make things any more simple that it is the Russian bear's backyard, which means they will have heavily involved, sowing chaos as usual. This tree has a lot of political paths to choose from, and will allow you to deal with the conflicts between them and their neighbors, as well as to learn about the complicated history of the country. They are able to join the EU and get access to all of those options and decisions as well. Just across the border is Azerbaijan's rival Armenia. They also have received a large tree for 1.7, which again surrounds the many leaders and political movements in the country, and how they relate to their neighbors and the conflicts that arise. A playthrough of Armenia is absolutely worthwhile and will be an incredibly engaging and fun experience. I hope you enjoyed this video. I was not intending this to be a guide or anything along those lines, but simply to underline some of the more interesting and fun countries to play in MD after the 1.7 update. There are of course plenty of other fantastic nations to play, and pretty much anything with a focus tree is worthwhile. However, these 10 I find to be especially fun and interesting. If you prefer another, or disagree with me, let me know in the comments. Also, as always, like and subscribe if you enjoy. I'm Hammurabae, and I will catch you in another video.